Vedic and post-Vedic sources show the Indian villages as a self-sufficient and autonomous miniature republic. Kingdoms and empires rose and fell, but the village survived. This essential feature has given Indian history a sense of continuity. This essential feature has given the village social organization that can be clearly understood by centering the discussion on the Panchayat, an effective agency of social control for ages. The autonomous village is best described by an author, Sir Charles Metcalfe, in his famous Minute of 1830, in which he wrote, "The village communities are little republics, having nearly everything they can want within themselves. They seem to last when nothing else lasts. Dynasty after dynasty tumbles down. Revolution succeeds revolution, but the village community remains the same. The union of the village communities, each one forming a separate little state in itself, has contributed more than any other cause to the preservation of the people of India and the enjoyment of freedom and independence." Looking on to the Vedic age now, the village during the Vedic age was administered by a respected official who in turn was advised by a council of elders. The Ramayana cites a village leader of great prestige, which was called a Gramani. He was held in high esteem, so much so that when Rama killed Ravana, the happy gods, in singing praises to him, compare him to the general and a Gramani. That the Gramani enjoyed high status in the village can be noted furthermore in that at the royal consecration, the king's entourage consisted of a Gramani, a Suta, that is a charioteer, and a Bagduga, collector of taxes. As one Indian historian has written, Gramani was probably at the head of the village administration. The post carried considerable prestige and is described to be the object of the highest ambition of a Vaishya. The king exercised his power over the village through the Gramani. The Gramani was in charge of defense. He was the chief of corps of volunteers and guardsmen. He also collected taxes for the state, a Gram Vridha, council of village elders, and the whole village cooperated with him in collecting dues for the state. The Gram Vidas was a non-official advisory body. The Gramani and the village scribe, equivalent to the present Patwari Patel, Kulkarni, etc., generally headed the Gram Vridha's council. Well, Manu, on the other hand, refers to the village official as a Gramik. Like the Ramayana, Manu also mentions village administration and tax collection for the king as the Gramik's main duties. In brief, this was also the village administration under the Guptas. Before considering the Mauryan age, it may be well to say a word about Vedic judicial bodies. Malviya claims that there is no clear evidence available for judicial bodies. He, however, states that the nature of village judicial bodies may be inferred from the questions that Rama asked Bharata in their meeting near the Mount Chitrakuta. Now, what happened in the Mauryan age? Village administration during this period, that is 324 BC to the 236 BC, was closely linked with agriculture. The village size ranged from 100 to 150 families. Boundaries were demarcated by river, hill, forest, ditches, tanks, bunds, and trees situated at 1 or 2 krosha, presumably for mutual protection within neighboring villages. Now, the following officials composed the village administrative staff or the Panchayat: the headman, the Adhyaksha, the accountant, village officials of different grades, the village couriers, and the veterinary doctor. In addition, the Chikitsaka, the charge of sanitation, and the Ashwadhamak, the horse trainer, were also village officials. All these functionaries were given land free of rent and taxes, but they were not allowed to sell or mortgage the land. Vidyalankar cities the degree of governmental control over the village. He writes that despite Chandragupta's vast empire and centralized regime, he never interfered much with the village administration. The village, therefore, remained a self governing unit under the Mauryas. A sketch of village life during this period is illuminating, and it goes: every village had its own sabha, that is, the assembly, which debated all matters relating to the village. Rules helpful to the entire community were framed, and the offenders were punished through regular trials and judgments. The sabha was the center of the multifarious activities of the village. It discussed religious and social matters. It arranged numerous types of entertainments. The sabha met under a shady tree. Representatives of village families, the leaders, the elders, and other experienced folk gathered there. The Indian people lived independently in these self governing village republics. Even during the post Mauryan period, known as the Dark Period, which is 200 BC to 00 AD, the village continued to be the smallest unit of administration, in which the headman, assisted by the council of elders, still played a prominent role. Now, the Gupta period that we look at. The village government under the Gupta was in many respects similar to that of the Maurya period. The village, both in northern and southern India, had the traditional leaders. The headman and the accountant were still active, and in addition, the watchman also helped in the administration. Altica describes that the village administration was in charge of a headman designated as a Gramyaka or as a Gramdhaksha. He had a clerk to work under him to keep the records. The headman was assisted in his work by non-official council. The village councils were known as the Gyanapadas in the Gupta administration. Now, the main responsibility of the village council were defense, settlement of communal disputes, collection of revenues, organization of public works, and acting as a trustee for minors. The councils in South India especially performed a major role in social affairs, revenue collection, assessment, public work, settlement of disputes, etc. On the judicial function, justice was administered by royal officials with the help of the village council or assembly. In certain cases, the assembly alone sat in judgment and passed the sentence. In the southernmost region of India, the lowest administrative units were the Kuram, the union of villages, and Grama, the village, each under its own headman who was assisted by his assembly. That is the Mahasabha. In some villages, the assembly was made up of the entire population. In some places, however, a few elders or the Brahmans were chosen by ballot. Assembly appointed committees performed definite functions such as those having to do with tanks, temples, justice, etc. The work of these self-governing bodies was directed by royal officers called as the Adhikaris. Now, to summarize it, the village headman and the accountant, both prominent officials in the Vedic and Mauryan periods, continued to play an important part in village administration during the Gupta period. Although the village council took various forms, but it retained most of its earlier functions. Village councils and officials in India can be traced as far back as the Vedic age. These autonomous councils and their functionary efficiently controlled village administration, civic and judicial affairs during the Maurya, Gupta, and even the Mughal periods. They played a significant part in ensuring the continuity of village life through ages. During the British rule, however, the Panchayat lost to a great extent their autonomy. The traditional caste panchayats, for example, became ineffective because of the competition offered by the British courts of justice. British attempts to revive and reform them in the early part of the 20th century failed. Indian nationalists led by Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru fought for panchayat revival. It was only after independence in 1947 that the panchayats partly regained their prestige and power. A specific provision was embodied among the directive principles of the state policy in the Constitution to the effect that the state shall take steps to organize village panchayats and endow them such powers and authority as may be necessary to enable them to function as units of self government.